Welcome, Binge Watchers, where we talk about the stories and characters we love and the shows they live in. My name is Ron. I am joined today by the lovely. How do you do this? How do we pronounce your name?
It's not an easy name to pronounce as Ron. It's Ofer. I guess. Hi.
So, welcome to the first one of. I guess we haven't named it, but
we don't have a name for it. It's the
first one of these
Binge Watcher co-hosting mega suplex show thing.
Binge talk. We're not super well prepared for this, but we're just kind of
going with the flow.
Yeah, we're gonna go along with this. I think the best way to introduce you to the Binge Watchers community is for you to tell us a little bit about
my childhood.
Your favorite show.
Well, my father. My favorite show.
Your all-time favorite show.
All-time favorite show. Well, the thing is, I'm not really an avid binge watcher. Like
get the fuck out.
All of you are. I'm sorry. When we spoke about earlier, I think the show that I enjoyed the most recently, to say, because I don't remember what I watched 5 years ago, was BoJack Horseman. Which kind of made me really get the feels every time. The first season especially. Yeah. Second season, I watched it. We watched it, me and my wife, and we enjoyed it not as much as the first season. And the third season, we just didn't bother because it kind of.
You haven't watched it? Nah, I think it's up to season 4. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Well, 3. We watched the first episode and kind of lost it by then because in the first season you get this whole, existential, dreadful journey kind of thing of a horse.
I get that sometimes with Rick and Morty, when I'll get through an episode and I have to remind myself it's just a TV show because the concept of cosmic horror, nothing actually matters, your existence is meaningless, like all of that, and I'm like, okay, it's
that was kind of took me by surprise because initially I didn't want to watch Rick and Morty. I kind of like, everyone's liking it, so probably doesn't have too much merit to it. But then we watched it. First episode was, and the second and third episode really reels you in and kind of hits you in the face. Yeah. You have a whole episode of them, messing things up in space, and then suddenly you get hit with this. Again, another existential kind of feeling of what am I even doing?
Yeah, I think it's pretty well summed up by the line from Rick when he said, well, what about the timeline where Hitler cures cancer? The answer is don't think about it. Pretty much. Yeah, it's
as much as you'd like to.
It's so hard to kind of think of a favorite show, but for me, it's always like the top 2 are Doctor Who, obviously, and Sons of Anarchy. And Sons of Anarchy, I would say, have you watched it?
No.
Sons of Anarchy, like if you compare it to a Breaking Bad or The Wire, like one of those, the bigger shows, I mean, as objective as you can be, it's probably not as good. Like the writing is probably not as good. Character development is probably not as good. Even cinematography and all of that.
And it goes for like, I don't know, how much season does it have?
7.
7 seasons.
2 seasons too long. It went for 2 seasons too long. It should have wrapped up at season 5. But with Sons of Anarchy, I guess it had to do with the time in my life when we watched that show. And I don't know why, but like I never had that type of connection to a character. And everybody in that show is insane. And the show doesn't, they're like a motorcycle gang. They basically just ride around and kill people. But they're also so, I guess, painfully human in such an exaggerated way. They feel everything so intensely.
There are certain periods in your life where certain shows just fit right in. Right? If you haven't watched something before and you do watch now for instance, we're watching Mad Men, right? I haven't seen it before.
Yeah.
And it's kind of old, I guess.
Yeah.
It's considered kind of old. And I'm watching it and I don't know, something about it really, really hooked me, really got me to, I want to see more of that. I don't know if if it's a thing of I relate to certain characters or I despise certain characters or the whole area they're in, the 60s New York advertising kind of thing. but that's something I really enjoy. And I think also that, you know, these periods of time in your life, some shows just fit, and they get there. And some shows, on the contrary, won't. Right? You watch something and you kind of wouldn't like it.
Do you feel that you have to relate to a character in order to really enjoy a show?
No, I can't really say that, you know, because the thing is, you know, relating to a character, it's there's also a difference between relating and identifying yourself with, because you can relate to certain aspects of a character. Let's say a character who is going through certain emotions which you are going through in your life at that moment. And the identification part is kind of, I feel that I am the same person as this person is.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be, you know, based on gender or ethnicity or whatever, but you kind of get this feel, or, you know, feel the same thing, even if you can't really relate to every aspect of that character. There are things which you identify with because you say, oh man, I'm going through the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? I feel the same way.
For me, it's often, do I understand why this character did the thing that they did? Which is one of the, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now, but it's one of the many reasons I don't enjoy The Walking Dead anymore. But in Sons of Anarchy, you know, as crazy as the show gets, that little piece is always there. You always understand. He just went on a killing spree or something. You at least know where emotionally where that came from.
Man, I'd go on the same killing spree.
Yeah.
Man, I'd do that.
Yeah.
Go kill those people.
I was driving the other day. Someone cut in front of me. Yeah, I just went and killed like 15 people. I mean, sometimes you have to unwind.
Yeah, I know, one of those mornings.
Yeah. So, I mean, the concept of relating to a character was always a little strange to me, I guess, because I mean, I think of my favorite shows. I think of Rick and Morty and Breaking Bad and Breaking Morty and Sons of Anarchy and Doctor Who and these types of shows. Obviously, I don't relate to the homicidal motorcycle gang member or the time traveling alien. You don't relate to who that character is, but sometimes it's more like what that character stands for, or I understand why they made a certain decision. So, what have you been watching this week?
This week, well, just today, I watched the first episode of Castlevania.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. Why is it awesome, in my opinion? Because not only because, you know, video games, and that's just
because video games.
Because video games, that's a good enough reason for everything. But also because it goes. You know, Netflix had these kind of anime adaptations of things, of Blame, and they have the Ajin.
Yeah.
And
have you watched Ajin?
Ajin, no.
Or the Knights of Sidonia? That was the other one?
No.
Blame sucked.
Blame sucked big time.
Yeah.
And if you...
Blame the movie sucked.
The movie, the Netflix movie. Because the manga, if you read it, then you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't read it, go do it right now.
We'll wait.
So it was kind of a wonky kind of animation, 3D like, and
the Blame movie.
The Blame movie, yeah, and the story wasn't fleshed out super well
it was
at all.
Super awkward movie.
It was awkward. It was awkward. If they cut, you know, half the frames and just put them out.
Yeah.
And then you have Castlevania, which goes to, you know, the hardcore anime kind of style of animation. And the thing which surprised me about it is that Netflix goes to the wider audience, because you have only we had only option to have it dubbed. The voiceover was in English.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you know if there's was it originally in Japanese or was it made in English?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think it was originally made in English, because I saw this kind of clip, you know, where Radi Shankar kind of presents one of the voice actors, and they talk about everyone's going to be in it.
Yep.
And you don't have an option to switch to Japanese. And I was like, okay, let's see how it goes. So they go to a wider audience, you know, because usually people think of, anime, all the Japanese screaming and all that. I don't like it. Yeah. And the thing is, on the one hand, they go to a wider audience. On the other hand, they really didn't, you know, cut back on the gore and you know, the
tentacle
cursing.
Monsters.
And then no tentacle monsters yet.
Yeah.
But they kind of goes full hardcore on Castlevania, you know, because like
as far as like the violence,
violence, demons, the gutting of peasants, and
It's Castlevania is only it dropped today, and it's only 4 episodes. Each episode is like 25 minutes.
And what's up with that? Right? It's like you had also another anime, which I admit to be watching at the moment, and no regrets, don't judge me, which is Little Witch Academia.
Okay. Isn't it My Hero Academia? Or something?
No, I think you have a Hero Academia and you have Witch Academia. You know, it's 2017. You can study whatever you want.
Okay,
right?
yes, I'm sorry. All the witches out there, I didn't mean to offend you.
All the single witches. So you have lots of academia, lots of you know, professions to go to. So Little Witch Academia, which also is like, I think it started with a Kickstarter or something, and then they made it for a full series. In Japan, it was, you know, they had full 26 episodes, and here in, you know, I guess the Europe region, they only have 13. So they kind of released half the show.
Just to kind of see how people feel.
Well, it feels, I think it's weird, because people won't go through 13 episodes and say, you know, I didn't like it.
But is it just the first 13 episodes, or is it?
Yeah, the first 13 out of 26. And, you know, you have 26 episodes out there. Out there somewhere.
You have to use the dark powers of the internet to get
to summon the rest of the episodes. So what's up with Castlevania? I don't know, because you know, Netflix says watch season 1 now, right? So season 1, 4 episodes.
But so have you watched all of it, or
no, just the first episodes? And I'm intrigued to see what else they have in store in there. Besides, you know, the usual Castlevania fan service, which they're obliged to give, or else.
I mean, I've played Lords of Darkness, which is like the new Castlevania, but I have to admit that I've never played like the original ones.
I haven't as well. I just watch streams and stuff.
I've been watching Twin Peaks this week. I've been watching 2 shows mainly. One is Goliath, which is an Amazon original.
All right.
It stars Billy Bob Thornton. Billy Bob. And Goliath is really good. It's basically kind of like a courtroom drama type show, and he's kind of a lawyer, a big time lawyer who sort of fell from grace, and he's now he's taking on his old law firm. So it's the like single practitioner versus this massive law firm, and it's a really good show, really solid show.
All right.
I haven't finished it yet, but I did finish the first season, which is only 8 episodes. So Twin Peaks, I mean, I'm watching it because they recently made Twin Peaks The Return, which is, you know, kind of like they did that for the X-Files, and now they're doing it for Twin Peaks. But I've never watched the original, so I sort of started going through it. And I know that there's the David Lynch style of intentionally like cringy acting. Like it's very 90s. It's a show from 1990. So a lot of very stiff 90s acting, which I know is kind of like the David Lynch style. So a lot of it is on purpose. So the experience for me watching this first season, which feels like a part of a story, it doesn't feel like a season of a show. I think I'm gonna wait until I'll watch season 2, which is 22 episodes. I'm gonna wait until I watch that to make my review on the channel. But my experience of watching it was like extreme cringe at first. I was like,
why, good lord, why?
And then, you know, that's episode 1, and then episode 2, you kind of move from the No, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It's so wonderfully weird, but weird in the best possible way. And just the character of Dale Cooper, which I identify with his obsession with black coffee, is
a very sensitive subject.
Very sensitive subject for me. But yeah, I mean, the character of Dale Cooper is fantastic. There's definitely a lot of cringe in there. But at first, you know, when people told me, yeah, that's David Lynch, that's, you know, part of his style.
Go with it, man.
I was like, yeah, I get that. But intentionally bad things are often still bad.
Yeah.
Which is really not the case here. It's just that first impression that you get of it's a little bit hard to watch in the first episode, especially watching it now for the first time, like I am. But once you get through, I think the first 30 minutes, the first episode is like an hour and a half.
Oh, wow.
So once you get through that first 30 minutes, I totally got into it, and yeah, I absolutely loved the first season.
How do you feel about old shows or shows which supposedly ended some time ago and being renewed for a season now? You have that with the X-Files, with Twin Peaks. You even have that with Samurai Jack, which was also renewed for another season. And it's I don't know if it's a trend, like taking things people loved before and making more of it nowadays, just to go on, on the emotional aspect of it.
Yeah, reboots and sequels.
But do you think it's a good direction? It's a good thing to do? Does it usually flunk out?
I mean, I think there's sometimes an emotional response of, hey, here's that thing I like, and it's back now, and obviously I'm gonna go, like, I really like X-Files, and I felt that the new season sucked. Like, I really didn't like it. A lot of people liked it, and that's fine. I personally really didn't like it. But obviously I watched it on that high of, I really want to see, Mulder and Scully kind of go up against like the
alien shenanigans.
Yeah, I mean all that kind of stuff. But I think that it's a dangerous direction, because we should be encouraging new ideas, and we should be encouraging original ideas. And it's the same thing with movies. You see, I mean, it's not a new thing to talk about that every movie that you see out there is either a reboot or a sequel. It's either Transformers 5 or Spider-Man or the Marvel movie. Yeah, like the Jumanji reboot that they're making, and it's a video game now. Every now and then you get like Baby Driver. There's that movie Colossus or Colossal, with Anne Hathaway, which looks pretty cool, or Get Out. You see, every now and then you get an original movie, and either it does super well or it just bombs and doesn't make enough money. And that's because you vote with your money, right? If they're making season 47 of X-Files and you go watch it, you're signaling basically to the Netflixes and HBOs of the world that that's what you want to see. Maybe that contributed to stuff like Sense8 being canceled. Anyway, we're not going to get into the whole Sense8 thing right now.
Good, because I haven't watched it.
Yeah, and we'll let future us kind of tackle that one. I do have a lot to say. No offense, I just don't know if you're the
breathe in.
Yeah, I don't know if you're the right person to contain my rage about it, because you haven't watched the show, which I'll wait. Let's move on to some binge watchers suggestions, shall we? A while ago I made a video asking for the wonderful binge watchers community to send us some suggestions and ideas, and if you've made it this far in the video, first of all, thank you.
First of all, good for you.
Yeah, good for you. You've made a good life decision today. We want to make sure, we want to keep this as much as possible a conversation between everybody, us, the rest of the community. And so if you have any questions that you want us to get to on these, whatever these are.
Binge Talkers.
Binge Talkers. Yeah. If you want to have your questions featured on Binge Talkers, call this number. So yeah, just put them in the comments, yeah. So we actually had a bunch from last time, and we don't have time to really get to any of them.
We really needed to thin it out and choose, an abundance of comments to pick out from.
Yeah, so I picked the best one.
The best one ever.
Yeah, I think we can agree on this one. Get into a very thoughtful discussion. So, best pet on TV.
The cat from Sabrina.
Okay, moving on.
No question about it.
So, expectations and thoughts about upcoming shows. Specifically, there are two shows that I want to talk about. And one is The Punisher, which I think is a really interesting story about how The Punisher kind of came into being as a TV show. And also, they're making a show about The Witcher. I don't know if it'll be adapted from the original kind of folk story or from the video game, but we can talk a little bit about that. About the Punisher, obviously, John Bernthal was featured as the Punisher on season 2 of Daredevil.
And that's the only good thing to come out of that season.
And I don't think the season was so bad as a whole. The Elektra part wasn't great. It wasn't great.
It wasn't good. It was bad. It was real bad.
Yeah,
it was real bad. You know, I watched it kind of
harsh
to keep going with it. And every time the Punisher came out with Fisk and everything, I was like, oh yes, give it to me. Besides that, it was a very dull and didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Fisk is possibly my favorite villain on a TV show in recent years. And the Punisher, everything about him, not just because he's like this awesome badass who fucks shit up and all of that, but
also because of that.
It's like 50% because of that, and also because of the incredible performance. And he was such a well-written character that it felt like someone else wrote everything that had to do with the Punisher, and then the rest of the show.
And my feeling was watching the second season is that you had the Punisher story, the main story arc with him, and then he gets wounded, arrested, and for me it felt like, okay, season is over, right? Like there was a certain story which ended there. I didn't expect to see him in the remaining episodes. For me it ended there, and then you kind of like drag yourself into another story arc.
Kind of climaxes with the scene where they're at the, like, no real spoilers here, but just when they're at the cemetery kind of talking it out. Just a wonderfully powerful scene. So anyway, the Punisher was featured there. It was received very well. Everybody loved the Punisher in Daredevil. So much so that now he's getting his own show. From what I understand, there were talks about giving the Punisher his own show, but it wasn't supposed to fit into the whole The Defenders thing. And now it's actually coming out, I think, November or something. So it's coming out pretty soon. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be amazing. I can't really contain my expectations for this show. I can't really say like, oh yeah, maybe. No, I'm fully expecting this to be the best Netflix Marvel show.
And that's the problem, because we expect it to be really good because we had the tease of something really, really good.
Yeah, because I never expected fucking Iron Fist to be good.
I didn't like Jessica Jones, right? I quit 6 episodes in. I didn't even want to watch Luke Cage because nothing about it interested me. And I watched the first episode of Iron Fist and I said, okay, they lost it, right? They have nowhere to go with Netflix original Marvel shows. After I was really overwhelmed by the first season of Daredevil.
Yeah, I mean, I liked. There was some good things about Luke Cage. I generally liked Jessica Jones, but the Punisher, as long as it's a character study and it's a show basically about all of the aspects of Frank Castle as a character, as a human person,
as a father,
and it's not too much of an origin story, I think it's going to be great. But in any case, it will be better than what it could have been, because originally the rights for the Punisher was I don't remember if it was, I think it was at ABC, the network ABC. And it was supposed to be a procedural where, like a 22 episode season where he solves crimes, because every show ever
solves crime with a 50 caliber machine gun.
Yeah, so because how the plot of every show ever is this person is a thing and they help a detective solve crimes. This person can talk to cats and he helps a detective solve crimes.
Detective Whiskers.
Yeah. So the Punisher almost became, this person has like a giant skull on his t-shirt and he helps the detective solve crimes by, I guess, just killing everybody on like a PG-13 show.
Yeah, they died.
Yeah.
I killed them.
They died off camera.
That was crime.
And is that some crime going over?
but he better kill it.
Yeah.
And The Witcher, well, I'm very excited for everything video game related.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think it's going to be a video game show, though, because, I mean, The Witcher, I don't know everything about it, but there's a series of books, and the guy who wrote the books was also involved in making the video game, and he's also involved in making the show. So I'm sure,
you think it's fair to say there'll be some kind of comparison?
I think there's definitely going to be a comparison since the video game series is wildly successful. It's the type of game that I've played all of them. I haven't finished any of them. I'm at like 0.5% of Wild Hunt.
But wrapped together, you played a whole game.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, no, it's really good, and I really love the feel of the game and the lore of the world, and I'm sure there's a lot to explore there. But I think, unlike The Punisher, which I feel is has a lot going for it, I feel that a show like The Witcher has kind of everything stacked against it, because it has all the potential to
be
suck,
awesome.
To
suck, to be awesome.
Yeah, but I mean, only if they have like Game of Thrones budgets.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Unless it's like, Xena the Warrior Princess. The History Channel has Vikings, which is very successful. And there's obviously Game of Thrones on HBO, and there's Black Sails. And there were a few big shows that were very successful, like period pieces or fantasy shows, or anywhere in between. And Marco Polo is sort of historical fiction. It was supposed to compete with those, I think.
Right.
And it didn't really do well in the 2 seasons that it had. Because it, I mean, I don't know how to describe it really, but it just it kind of sucked. It didn't go far enough. You try to have this large, epic world that requires
tiny budget.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Netflix, I'm sure they have money, and I'm sure they have massive budgets. I mean, you can look up online how much they paid for like House of Cards and Orange is the New Black, or any of the big shows. And Marco Polo, I think, suffered because they tried to make it about the characters, and they tried to make it an interesting show about interesting characters. And they kind of tried to get away with this big epic world and, lots of stuff going on, and it didn't really work. And I kind of think that the same thing is going to happen with The Witcher.
Right.
So I'm not super psyched for it. Whereas The Punisher, where they have Marvel behind it, so they probably have like, it's Disney money that behind that.
Still doesn't guarantee quality.
Yeah, but I mean, we already have a proof of concept for The Punisher.
You have a teaser for it, you kind of know what to expect.
Yeah. So bottom line is
Should you watch it?
Yeah. Bottom line is I'm more excited for Punisher than I am The Witcher. Well, I guess we'll kind of see. The bottom line is that you have to watch all the things that we discussed.
Everything, ever.
So I'd like to thank you very much for talking about shows with me. Hopefully we will do this every day for the rest of our lives.
Yes.
Yes.
I can't think of any better way to spend my time here on Earth. Really?
So I don't really have a good sign off, but I'll just say that keep binging.
And I'll see you guys next time.
Fuck you.